You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. My special guest today, a standalone guest for a long, in-depth personal interview, discussion, catch-up, chat, is Jane Fonda. My sister, my friend, my co-founder with Gloria Steinem of the Women's Media Center, my buddy, and a very, very busy woman these days with a hit series and a hit movie and organizing. And we're going to talk politics as well as art. So stay with us there. And first there's the Surrealism Corner, and afterward there's Fighting Words, lots of stuff. And first, you and I are going, as usual, inside the headlines. There's actually good news this week. We start with the 53 percentage point lead that was Stacey Abrams' margin of victory Tuesday in Georgia's Democratic primary for governor. Abrams is the first black woman nominated for governor by a major party, and she would be the first black woman elected governor in U.S. history. Stacey was an electrifying guest on this program recently on March 25th in episode 242, so if you missed that, check it out on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or at WMCLive.com. Women rolled on elsewhere, too. Half a dozen Democratic women across Texas advanced to the midterms. In their gubernatorial primary runoff election, Democrats chose former Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez, the first openly gay nominee for governor in Texas and the first Latina nominee. Attorney and former Planned Parenthood board member Lizzie Pannell Fletcher won the Democratic runoff in the 7th Congressional District, while Democratic former Air Force intelligence officer Gina Ortiz Jones took the Texas 23rd District. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, Amy McGrath seized the Democratic nomination for Congress in the 6th District, leaning hard on her profile as a military veteran and a political newcomer and a woman. Another first, closer to home for me, is that the New York legislature finally did something right. It voted to confirm highly qualified Deputy AG Barbara D. Underwood as the state attorney general, fending off all the corrupt Albany attempts to not appoint her and officially making her the first woman to hold the post, to fill the sudden vacancy left by the resignation of Eric Schneiderman after he was accused of violence against several romantic partners. It's one of the replacement by a woman moves that signal poetic justice. Similarly, in another field, media, Christiane Amanpour, also a previous guest on this program, will be replacing Charlie Rose on PBS. She had been doing half-hour interim replacements for his 11 p.m. talk show, which was canceled after multiple women came forward to accuse him of sexual harassment and misconduct. Now, Amanpour is expanding the show to an hour, just like Rose's used to be. It will have a new name, Amanpour and Company. And Amanpour plans to include a remarkable diversity of voices and views, and said that she was, quote, also thrilled to be a female having this role at this time, close quote. Of course, there's still plenty of bad news rushing at us. The Supreme Court's recent 5-4 decision, split along expectable ideological lines, upheld the right of employers to use mandatory arbitration clauses to block the filing of class action lawsuits over such workplace issues as unpaid overtime. The majority rejected arguments that forcing those cases into private individual arbitration violated federal labor law. This could be a real blow to women who have frequently used class action lawsuits when no other forms of redress were possible. And over at the White House, Trump's proposal to impose new abortion restrictions on federally funded family planning groups from providing abortions or even referring women to places that do takes direct aim at Planned Parenthood, which provides a range of women's health services, including contraceptives. No government funding goes toward Planned Parenthood abortion services anyway, but apparently that's not enough for the Friends of the Fetus. In effect, Trump is proposing a domestic gag rule. Spokeswomen for Planned Parenthood call the proposal straight out of The Handmaid's Tale, and so it is. Looking abroad, some good news from Armenia, where the parliament voted to make former journalist and political prisoner Nikol Pashinyan prime minister, even though his supporters hold only 9 of the 105 parliamentary seats. The legislature was forced to act after hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in what Pashinyan openly called a velvet revolution. Then, an election in Malaysia that had been assumed would go in favor of the ruling party nevertheless turned out to be a victory for an opposition coalition led by a 92-year-old former prime minister and his imprisoned coalition partner. Prime Minister Rozak, the current one, had appeared so certain to hold power despite allegations of epic corruption, but he was ousted. In Tunisia, women are welcoming the establishment of a handful of shelters for survivors of domestic violence. This follows Parliament having passed a law last year outlawing a broad range of violent acts against women. Tunisia prides itself on being the most advanced Arab nation when it comes to women's rights, and given the fact that women have long held the right to divorce there and child custody, and that polygamy was abolished the year after independence in 1956, that's fair. Yet battery, economic violence, and domestic sexual abuse are among the most prevalent types of aggression, with 60% of Tunisian women victimized by domestic violence in 2016, according to the Ministry of Women, Family, and Children. There are now 7 women's shelters in Tunisia funded by the European Union. They offer protection, legal advice, job training, child care, and psychological and medical treatment. On May 25th, Ireland will go to the polls in a referendum on whether to repeal the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, which says a fetus has an equal right to life as the woman carrying it. A yes vote would open the doors to legislation allowing abortion up to 12 weeks and later in cases in which there's a risk to the woman's life or if the fetus isn't expected to survive. A no vote would keep Ireland's abortion laws as they are, some of the strictest in the European Union. Currently, Irish women caught breaking the law and the doctors who assist them can face up to 14 years in prison. What's not illegal, however, is getting an abortion overseas. So on average, 9 Irish women travel to England and Wales every single day for the procedure, and must do so secretly and in a climate of shame. Women in Ireland also lack access to modern prenatal diagnostic tools and care, including amniocentesis, proper medical management of miscarriage, and even life-saving treatments for conditions like sepsis, all because of the 8th Amendment's chilling effect. So a lot is riding on the referendum. Regrettably, the results will come in too late for our production schedule to include them in this program, but we will certainly pick up the story next week. And at last, a note of awed congratulations to the veteran Sherpa guide Lakha Sherpa, who last week extended her record of Mount Everest climbs with a 9th summit. That's the number 9 times she's been up there, the most of any woman and of most men. How come the world doesn't celebrate the way Sherpas just trundle up and down the world's highest mountain almost like a commute as a matter of course and a matter of their culture? While everyone goes ballistic when a Westerner makes the climb. Why do I ask such a silly question? Silly me, when we already know the answer. We have to take a break here. It's Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I will return in just a moment with the Surrealism Corner. That's coming right up.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back just in time for the Surrealism Corner. The Surrealism Corner this week consists of a single issue. I'm not sure it's particularly funny, but it is hilarious, and I think really qualifies for surreal. It's about race and racism and the perceptions and misperceptions of the myth of race. As you know, the argument persists about the Trump voter, the white male, I would add, Trump voter, and the economists largely argue it's because he felt so threatened about jobs being technologized and shipped overseas and blamed race. And the sociologists and political scientists and social scientists arguing not so fast, you can't say race and racism didn't have something to do with it. Well, this continuing discussion sent me back to a fascinating piece that stuck with me from last year on the op-ed page of the New York Times by Herbert J. Gans, a professor emeritus of sociology at Columbia and the author of the book Sociology and Social Policy. And Gans took on the issue in a piece called The Census and Right-Wing Hysteria, noting that the Census Bureau began to predict a few years ago that the U.S. would become a majority-minority nation by the 2040s, and that non-Hispanic white babies under the age of 1 were already in the minority. So he argues that these numbers have become a handy data point for whites fearful that they're being threatened and overwhelmed by this tide of darker-skinned people. And the census unintentionally then may have increased white racism, thereby justifying, he says, the long-standing Republican strategy of turning itself into a whites first party, and this, of course, may have helped Trump win. Nonetheless, but we have to remember that she won the popular vote. Nonetheless, again says, the minority-majority forecast, as commonly interpreted, is likely to be proven wrong. Not only could whites remain a majority well past mid-century, but they will retain political, economic, and cultural control of the country long after that. And I would pop in and add that that certainly has been true, for example, of South Africa. He writes, simply put, the demographers have not taken into account how the perception of race is likely to change in the coming years. For example, whites are already seeing the descendants of some Asian and Latino immigrants as being similar to them. Consequently, whites treat them as whites. This whitening process will only increase in the future. And he argues that the census prediction is based on at least 5 mistakes, all of them correctable. Mistake number 1. The Office of Management and Budget requires the census to count people of white Latino, white Asian, and white black ancestry as non-white. And in its prediction, the census counts all of these population people as minorities. In reality, however, a number of these so-called mixed-race people, especially from the first 2 populations, white Latino and white Asian, identify themselves as white. So there's a self-identity differential. Mistake number 2, the census seems to have failed to anticipate the likelihood that the number of mixed-race people who see themselves as white will grow much more in the coming decades, primarily as a result of increasing Latino white and Asian white intermarriages. So by the 2040s, when the children of these unions have become adults, the significant number will marry whites themselves and become parents, and thereby further increase the population seen as white, and thus the white majority. Mistake number 3. The census forgot American history, specifically the long history of the whitening of populations previously labeled non-white. In the 18th century, when the first Swedish and German immigrants arrived, Benjamin Franklin, who knew, and others complained that their skin color was endangering Anglo-Saxon racial purity. A generation or two later, their descendants, now Americanized, looked perfectly Anglo-Saxon. In the 19th century, the Irish, particularly poor ones, were described as Black Irish or swarthy, as were the equally poor Eastern and Southern European immigrants. By the 1960s, however, their grandchildren were called white ethnics. The same whitening is now taking place among the descendants of Asian and light-skinned Latinos, particularly those already in the middle class. But native-born African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, and African immigrants are still excluded, no matter their economic status. Mistake number 4, this could be called, Gans writes, the identity-identification paradox. It's the view from the outside. The census asks people how they identify themselves racially, but a meaningful prediction requires knowing how they are identified by others. The question is, whom whites will still identify as non-white by the 2040s? Most likely, ever larger number of whites will see people of mixed races and the children of intermarriages as white, increasing the white population. And mistake number 5, the census has lumped African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans together, projecting their numbers to the 2040s and deciding that the sum should be labeled a majority. But the three populations differ in many ways. Sometimes they compete against one another for jobs and other scarce resources like political power, and they may discriminate against one another, and each is also internally stratified. Rich members keep their distance from the rest, and descendants of earlier immigrants sometimes exploit the later arrivals, and they may even discriminate against one another by region of origin and shades of skin color. So because of this, even beyond the 2040s, the populations are unlikely to act together as a unified group, a cohesive voting bloc, for example. And this has been true, at least until now, for women, I would add. Susan B. Anthony said, when you get the vote, hoard it. Vote as a bloc. And women really haven't. We see a banding together of women at this time, at least voting in the same direction. So that's an interesting change. Gans finishes by saying, the census can't say this, but whites should fear instead that many of them are increasingly suffering some of the same economic and political pains as non-whites. They all are victims of an economy that has computerized many jobs and sent others overseas, and they're all victims of a political system ever more dominated by business and a donor class that funds many election campaigns. He argues that the Census Bureau needs to address this in case the forecast of minority-majority becomes a weapon in the country's political battles and impairs its credibility, and that the census should point out all these ironies and intricacies. Well, I would add to this, I find it absolutely fascinating, particularly since race itself, we now know scientifically, is a complete myth. It all depends on how much melanin you have in your skin and how much you can absorb vitamin D. But it certainly is astonishing the extent to which people, in this case white Americans, will go to otherize people who they're not familiar with, and then, with time and familiarity, to whiten them. Why? Why not the colorizing of America? Why not the copperizing of America? Why not the goldenizing of America? Because apparently the deep internalization of whiteness as somehow better in everything from political power to beauty standards is so far still powerful enough to have a grip on the imagination both of whites and everyone else. And that, my friends, is truly surreal. It's time for another short pause here at Women's Media Center Live, but I will be right back with the one and only, needs no introduction, Jane Fonda. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. And when I say Jane Fonda needs no introduction, I really mean that. It would take the entire length of the program, and then I still wouldn't be finished, what with all the awards and the whole exercise tape periods that changed America. And oh my God, it goes on and on. But we are going to talk about her successful, now getting its 5th year series with Lily Tomlin, Grace and Frankie. We are going to talk about her new movie just out. We are going to talk about her organizing, because that's the Jane I got to know and really, really love. And it's like listening in on two girlfriends, because that's what we are. So here, with great pride, returning to the program again, my sister founder of the Women's Media Center, Jane Fonda. And welcome back to the program. Dearest Jane, welcome home.
It's so good to hear your voice, darling Robin.
Well, here we are again. Here we in our rocking chairs, changing the world. I don't know where to start. Where do you want to start? There's the series. You're successful.
Well, I'm not in a rocking chair.
I bet you're not. Neither am I.
I may be in a wheelchair soon, but not a rocking chair. Things are going a mile a minute.
If you have a wheelchair, it would be jet propelled. I want to talk about the series, Grace and Frankie. I want to talk about the activism. I want to talk about there's a new movie, book club. Where do you want to start?
Oh, let's just start with Grace and Frankie.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. It is such a privilege to go to work every day with Lily Tomlin.
Yeah,
and we're in our 5th year now. We're in the middle of shooting the 5th season, and every year I realize more and more what an amazing human being she is and what a genius of a talent. I fall in love with her every time. It's just incredible. This woman who has so many different people inside of her that she speaks about like they're real people, and it's just wonderful to watch her process. And we've been busting our buns out on the road doing activist stuff, too, and it's a lot of fun. People like to see us together because they can feel that we love each other. It's a very funny series. It's a huge hit. It's one of the biggest hits. It's hard for me to believe that my first time out, I'm in an actual hit series. People all over the world are loving it. And what Lily and I love about it is that we're in the middle of all the laughs, what we're doing is showing that there's something to look forward to about being old.
Oh God, yes.
That we can lead fun, sensual, robust, exciting, complicated lives, and don't put us out to pasture prematurely, which our children are trying to do in the series.
And there is absolutely no other image of women at this age doing these things on television or anywhere in the media. This is a total first. And it is, as an older woman now, it's I can't tell you how, I can breathe when I watch it. Suddenly I can breathe. I'm not only because I know and love the two of you, that's a privileged position. By the way, Lily said to me last week, but just almost the same words about you. What a privilege it is to go to work every day with the genius that Jane is. So clearly you two are having fun and we get to watch. It's just amazing. I'm so glad it's a success because.
And then, besides the joy of playing robust older women, the fact of showing women's friendship. I mean, very little keeps us alive as much as women's friendship. There was a Harvard health school study that shows that not having women friends is as bad for your health as smoking.
Right.
And boy, I can really tell, and I know you've experienced it too. There's a hormone released in our brain when we get together with our women friends.
Oxytocin.
Oxytocin that gets rid of cortisol, the stress hormone, and it helps us to live longer. Apparently, when you have close women friends, it can add 5 years to your lives. And we so rarely, we see women competing with each other in mass media, but it's not often that we see true love. And sometimes I can, on screen in the series, I take Lily's face in my hands, and we're playing the scene, and at the same time I'm thinking with another part of my brain, how great is it that I can do this and people can see women loving on each other in this way instead of always competing and being angry.
Yes. Oh, no, it is so affirmative and poignant at the same time. I mean, it's got its shadows as well. It's not a happy, it's not, there's nothing superficial about it. And I mean, it is really well written and it's gorgeously performed. So,
thanks. So about a year ago, I get a script called Book Club.
Yeah.
And, at first I thought, well, God, I don't know. It's all about sex. Do I really want to do a movie that's all about sex? But Diane Keaton had already signed on, and I thought, well, I really want to get to know her and work with her. And my gay hairdresser and makeup artist, they both read the script and said, this is going to be huge. You have to do this. This is really fun. And I trust their instincts. So I said yes. And then Candy Bergen and Mary Steenburgen signed on.
Wow.
And did we have fun? We had such a good time. And this movie is going to be huge. You heard it from me first. It's Fandango. We were just in Vegas promoting the movie, and the woman who runs Fandango said they've rarely had as many advanced sales.
Oh my God!
It's really, really funny. Also, older women, still leading very full and interesting lives, and women's friendship. We have each other's backs.
Yes.
And what's really nice is, along with all the laughs, I personally cried 3 times when I was watching it. Cried out of poignant. It was so poignant, and so there's such wisdom expressed in it. None of us expected that it would turn out this way. It was the first time director Bill Holderman and Aaron Sims wrote it, a woman and a man, and then he directed it, and it just came out great.
And of course, some time ago, Gloria and I were talking about book clubs and how book clubs have become, since they're 99%.
Consciousness raising.
Exactly. They're women. I mean, 99% of them. There may be a man in there now and then, but most, they're women. And that's what they've become. They are today's version of what consciousness raising was. With the book of the moment, that they've decided to read as the catalyst. My God. So there's a hit series. So there's a hit movie, and in between.
I think it's going to be a hit.
And in between, with that cast, my God, and somewhere in between, you have been doing, as usual, organizing.
Well, I dragged Lily to Michigan. She comes from Detroit.
She certainly does.
And right after the election, and oh God, I hate even to say the word, in 2016, I went to a retreat of the heads, women and men, the heads of large movement organizations, to strategize. And there I met a woman named Saru Jayaraman, who founded ROC, Restaurant Opportunity Centers United, which is fighting for one fair wage.
She's fantastic. She's been on the show a number of times. She's a pal.
She's the real deal.
Yeah, she's
the real deal.
She's amazing.
She is to restaurant workers what Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta were to farm workers.
Exactly.
Yes, and so we're doing something really interesting in Michigan, which is, I think, is being seen as a template for other states. Pennsylvania is already copying it. We're getting a ballot measure, a one fair wage ballot measure on the ballot in November. Now, we did a poll a year and a half ago asking people in Michigan if they intended to vote in the midterms, and only 30% said yes. And we said, well, if there was a one fair wage ballot measure on the ballot, would you vote? And it went up to 60%,
Wow.
60%, saying that they would vote. So it's clearly also a way to get voters to the poll.
Wow.
So Lily and I went there to raise money and promote the ballot measure, which nobody really knew about at the time. And Lily has been a waitress, and she was so funny telling her stories about being a waitress. And we traveled all over Michigan, and we canvassed, and now we have all the signatures, and the ballot measure, I think, is going to be on the ballot. And alongside that, this is what I love, is as we're gathering signatures, we contact those people and invite them to town hall meetings where there's education going on, education about who the enemy really is.
Wow.
And, just moving people to the left and encouraging them to create a people's platform.
Wow.
How do they want to see their state? What kind of a society do they want to live in? Writing it down. It's going to become a We the People Michigan movement.
Oh.
There's a convention happening the end of July, so this will last beyond the midterm elections. And, this is the kind of thing that we love to see happen, right?
Yeah, this is fantastic. This is grassroots democracy organizing. Let me get this straight. Did you say you were canvassing? You were ringing doorbells?
Yeah, and I'm going back.
So wait, halt for a minute. So some hapless person, many hapless people, opened their doorbell and found Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin standing there saying, "Hi, may we talk to you about politics?" Is that what basically?
Well, when we were there the last time, we didn't go to doors. We stopped people on the street, and needless to say, crowds formed pretty quick, and it was utterly fascinating. There wasn't one negative reaction. Not one.
Oh, how lovely.
All ages, all races, black, white, Latino, Muslim, Jew, you name it. Everybody was very, very enthusiastic. They all signed. It was very encouraging.
Oh, how lovely. Well, I'm sure it made everybody's day. Everybody at supper that night was saying, "You're not going to believe who I ran into outside the drugstore."
We're hoping to pass one fair wage in Washington, D.C. as well. And Governor Cuomo has a pledge to pass it in New York State. So, let me just say something about the one fair wage. There are only 7 states, including California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Minnesota, Montana, Alaska. I don't know if I've left any out that have where there isn't a 2-tier system where tipped workers make the minimum wage along with other workers plus tips. And in those 7 states, sexual harassment was cut in half.
Of course.
Which really shows how directly linked sexual harassment is to
getting a tip.
Money.
That's right.
And money. If you're paid a decent wage, you tend not to put up with bad behavior.
Exactly.
Because you're not as vulnerable. And also you're treated differently. So it's really important from a stopping sexual harassment point of view. And also, people don't realize, the federal wage for tipped workers is $2.13. Come on.
Yeah, it's appalling.
Really?
It's absolutely appalling. I know in New York City there are different restaurant owners that have signed on with Rock for a fair and decent wage, so that you don't have to. They discourage tipping because tipping still makes for a very tiered system that is not respectful to the wait staff. And the wait staff is most of the time women. And so
80%.
That's
80%.
right. That's right. Oh no, she is just the most wonderful presenter of these statistics and the passion behind them and pointing out that this is deeply a feminist issue that I could think of. Saru is just terrific. So you've been doing that, you and Lily together in Detroit.
Yes. Well, all over Michigan, I've been going to D.C. and New York to work with Rock. And then, because I come from a place of grassroots organizing. That's
right. That's right.
What Tom and I did. You got to talk to people. One of the reasons the Democrats have been left in the dirt is because we forgot our base. We didn't go back to people where they live and where they're hurting and where they're scared and talk to them about their issues.
Right.
And I'm so worried that the Democratic Party is still not learning the lessons, still putting too much emphasis on TV ads and so forth. But we've been walking precincts and flipping votes in San Diego, in the 49th district in San Diego.
Wow!
And I'm taking a busload of women and men to Bakersfield.
Uh-huh.
Because Working America has a project in Central America that I'm involved in. Central America, in the Central Valley,
uh-huh.
Where there's this is where most of the food comes from, is the Central
Sure.
Valley, and the farm workers they're treated badly. There's tremendous sexual abuse for the women, and dangerous conditions, and very little organizing. And so we're doing something that really hasn't been done since the heyday of the United Farm Workers Union.
Right. I mean, I don't know about you, but I am incredibly, even in these dark and dismal times, incredibly heartened and encouraged, because the kind of activism that you're talking about, that you have always done, whatever else you were doing aesthetically, is all over the place. And it's women, and it's women driven. I mean, the teachers that are going out, walking out all over. I mean, 90% of them,
incredible.
And 90% of them are women. 70% of the students who have been walking out of schools in protest are female. I mean, in other words, the Women's March never ended, Jane.
That's right.
And we've been saying a long time now, all issues are women's issues, and now we're actually seeing it, because each of these indivisible, all the wonderful indivisible groups across the country, they're 80% women. So, it's just like women have said, okay, enough already. I mean, we're not putting up with this any longer. And that
I didn't realize, I've gotten to know Patrice Concolors.
Mm-hmm.
She's a co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Patrice Concolors. She has a brilliant book out,
right.
Autobiography called When They Call You a Terrorist, which
right.
I urge people to read. And I've gotten to know her, and I had not realized before that Black Lives Matter is a woman-centric organization founded by women. And
Three women founded it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it was black women in Alabama, really, that were largely responsible for electing Doug Jones.
That's right. Yeah.
And what's so interesting is that black women are so much more pragmatic than white people are. They could care less about Doug Jones, but they wanted to show that they had electoral clout, and they didn't want that pedophile in office.
Yep.
And so they said, okay, he's not perfect, but we're gonna make sure that he gets elected. And they're pointing the way for us.
There is this energy all over that isn't putting a lot of weight in classic movement fashion on the differences, and instead is putting the weight on the similarities, on the overlap, on the where can we go forward, and the pragmatic. And this is the first time we've been really, the might of the U.S. women's movement is taking it to the polls. So I am very heartened, even in the middle of my daily nausea.
I am too. And intersectionality has moved from being a kind of an abstract intellectual concept to an automatic response.
Yeah.
The young people, just automatically, they're different colors, different races, different ethnicities, and, no thought is even given to it. It's just a given.
Yeah. Well, that's given we've been priming the pump on that one for 50 years. So there's a trickle of water now, which is awfully exciting.
Right.
Awfully exciting. So what's next, Jane? Aren't you writing any books? Aren't you doing another film? Are you getting lazy, Jane? Only one series? One series?
We shoot. I seem to be doing so many fundraisers, it's hard to even remember. But we shoot Grace and Frankie until the end of June, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the time trying to make trouble and make a difference in the midterm elections. I'm going to be traveling the country a lot with Saru.
Oh, wonderful. What a pair, my God.
And
you know what? We need a 9 to 5, another movie. We need a 9 to 5 about restaurant workers.
we're working on it, but it's still office workers. But the offices today are totally different. Today, offices, they don't directly hire, like Consolidated, the company in 9 to 5, hired women directly. Now, there's a company outside of Consolidated that subcontracts its workers to the Consolidated business. So, it gets so layered and so complicated that it's even harder today than it was in the 70s when we made 9 to 5, but we're working on a sequel to it.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, this is absolutely
and
thrilling.
Then there's Time's Up.
And then there's Time's Up. Yes, get into that, my dear.
Well, there's Me Too, which is survivors of assault and rape come forward and tell their stories, and more are being believed. And out of that has grown this organization called Time's Up, which has a huge fund, multi-million-dollar fund to help women in all work sectors, restaurant workers and janitors and domestic workers and farm workers and so forth, with legal advocacy on their behalf, which is great. But also, we meet with, I went to a meeting, there were 40 women there, and they were from all different sectors, from sports to janitors to so forth, talking about how we can have each other's backs and help us. And it's resulting in, really tangible things going forward. Yeah. And it's very exciting. And I wanted to emphasize that because I know a lot of people feel, well, Hollywood, a bunch of elites, women are now speaking up, but that's right. It took famous white women saying, this is what happened to me, for people to start sit up and take notice and realize that this issue is epidemic.
That's right.
Now we have to stand and have the backs of women who are far more vulnerable than we are, and we're doing it. Yes. And it's happening.
And it happened right at the very beginning. I mean, there wasn't a time lag. I was very impressed by that because, and in fact, I recently did appeared at a benefit to raise money for Time's Up at the Tribeca Film Festival, which was being organized by your dear friend Paula Weinstein. And so, it is vitally important because those are the funds that can hire lawyers for the women who, are not famous. But the attention keeps being put on the subject by women who are famous. So then we've got a good, double whammy, tactical approach. Nothing wrong with that, by God, that's fantastic.
So this is not a moment. This is going to continue. We're not going to let this die away.
No, we're not. And
aren't we lucky to have lived this long, Robin?
I say it every day, Jane. I mean, I interviewed the Parkland students, the journalism ones from the journalism school and on the school paper, and they've now become Women's Media Center live regular correspondents, so that they will report in on all demonstrations that occur, and they're thrilled at that, and they're so great. They are just so incredible. I mean, they talk openly about survivor guilt. They talk about the trauma, but they also are not going to go away. And they're mostly girls. I mean, it is an absolute thrill, a total thrill. And
a few good men, and they are good men.
They are brilliant men. They are just fantastic. So it's like the beginning of the Dickens novel of it was the best of times and the worst of times, but
that's right.
We're turning it into the best of times, and this year is going to be very interesting. So take care of yourself. I love you dearly. I love you dearly. Keep up the organizing. Keep up the everything. Stay healthy, and we'll fall into each other's arms the next time I'm there or you're here in New York. All right?
Yes, we will. I love you, Robin.
We have to take one last break here at Women's Media Center Live, and then I, Robin Morgan, will be back with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again to some fighting words. stubborn people, we feminists. We never give up on anybody or any group, particularly the women of any group. True, we may have fantasies of gently abducting them, whisking them to some idyllic place, feeding them homemade soup, and engaging in non-stop consciousness raising together until the great "Aha! You too!" descends on all of us in a blaze of insight. But in truth, we feminists have seen a whole lot of women, starting with ourselves, come round over the decades and have celebrated each one freeing herself at her pace from patriarchal blinders. Can it be that now Christian evangelical women, some of whom as individuals have already made their feminism admirably clear, are coming around in larger numbers? Such profound changes don't happen easily or all at once. Things get densely entangled, of course, when mixed with culture and with strongly conservative politics. If changes happen at all, they happen one seemingly non-political issue at a time, one moment of insult so intense that a few women friends crack the silence first with one another, and then with others, and then more start to speak through that crack, which widens with each added voice. That's what seems to be happening with the Southern Baptist Convention, the nation's largest Protestant denomination, which claims 15 million members. In the 1970s, a conservative takeover of the Southern Baptist Convention led to the adoption of resolutions that belief in the Bible's inerrancy included a ban on female pastors and the teaching that women should be submissive to their husbands. It wasn't always that way. A leader of that conservative takeover was Dr. Paige Patterson, then president of the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, and now, lately, president of Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, and a major figure in the Southern Baptist community. You might recall that a few years ago, Rosalind and Jimmy Carter publicly left the Southern Baptist Convention because despite their lifelong attendance and social participation in the church, Rosalind was denied a deaconship by the all-male church leaders because she was a woman. But now, Me Too has manifested its energy like a revelation in those congregations. It began with the newly resurfaced videotapes of Patterson, which sent ripples throughout the entire Southern Baptist Convention. The videos exposed how, in 2000, Patterson told the story of a woman who'd been abused by her husband and had come to him for counsel. He had told her to pray quietly beside the bed at night, though he also warned her to, quote, "Get ready because your husband may get a little more violent, you know, when he discovers this," close quote. When the woman returned to him with a hideously bruised face, she said, according to Patterson himself, "I hope you're happy." To which he answered, quote, "Yes, ma'am, I am. I'm sorry about that, but I'm very happy because the husband had shown up in church that morning and asked for forgiveness." Paige Patterson had also delivered sermons counseling battered wives to stay in abusive relationships and, quote, "be submissive in every way," close quote. In one videotaped sermon, he told a story about boys leering at girls and mothers then scolding their sons. Wrongly, he said, because, quote, "such a boy is just being biblical," close quote. It was a quip that always invoked laughter and applause from his audience. In 1997, Patterson made a disturbing comment for which he then refused to apologize for 2 weeks until forced to do so. It was a comment in general about women, quote, "I think everybody should own at least one, period," close quote. Furthermore, a former student claims that back when Patterson was president of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, he discouraged her from reporting a rape to police and told her that she should forgive the rapist instead. Not that Patterson is the only such abuser of religious authority among evangelicals. On the contrary, there have been so many that the pattern gave birth to a fictional character, Elmer Gantry, who became, well, a stereotype. For instance, Bill Hybels, founder and senior pastor of one of the most influential churches in the country, Willow Creek Community Church in Illinois, had to resign recently after charges of improper conduct and abuse of power. Pastor Andy Savage resigned from his Memphis megachurch when it came to light that he had sexually assaulted a high school student years earlier. Les Huey, founder and pastor of another megachurch in Scottsdale, Arizona, resigned after several women accused him of sexual misconduct when he'd been a youth pastor in California decades earlier. Then, of course, there is the seemingly unshakable evangelical support for Donald Trump with his long, odious history of sexual misconduct and misogynistic attitudes. All this has built up over time, and the surfacing of the Patterson remarks just might have been the last straw. Keep in mind that evangelical women are highly capable people, many of whom have jobs outside the home, work in the home, run small businesses, are active in their communities, and juggle all that with raising families and creating church organizations, church suppers, and so forth. As with the black church, it's women who keep the wheels turning, though it's men who get to ride somewhere. So the revolt began with a few women, but soon more than 3,200 women affiliated with Southern Baptist churches and beyond signed a petition calling for decisive action against Patterson. The petition is ongoing and still online. The letter goes on and reads, quote, "We are shocked by the video that has surfaced showing Dr. Patterson objectifying a teenage girl and then suggesting this is behavior that is biblical. We are further grieved by the dangerous and unwise counsel given by Dr. Patterson to women in abusive situations." And it goes on, blisteringly. Well, Paige Patterson has been fired from his position and demoted to President Emeritus, after those thousands of evangelical women started calling for his ouster. You go, girls. These women deserve our respect and support, and our recognition that they're not alone in their evangelical world. For example, Boz Chividjian, the grandson of Billy Graham and himself a former child abuse prosecutor, has been trying to end the culture of silence about sexual violence in the church. As founder and executive director of Grace, which stands for Godly Response to Abuse in the Christian Environment, GRACE, he has said, quote, "When something does surface, all too often the church leadership quiets it down because they're concerned about reputation. But keeping things in the dark and allowing souls to be destroyed by abuse, that shames the gospel." Period, close quote. It's a cheap shot. Easy to dismiss all evangelicals in one lump, and dismissing all of any group in one lump is dangerous in itself. Decades ago I wrote, "Hate generalizes, love specifies." Those 4 words summarize a lot of politics for me. So the next time you encounter a woman who calls herself an evangelical Christian, look beyond the label, as you would hope she might do about you, and try to start a discussion if you haven't already. If you yourself are an evangelical woman hearing this who has felt in the past that my words stereotyped you, I offer my deep apologies, and I promise to try to break my own conditioning and never do so again. The great strength of this country is its pluralism, as well as its separation of church and state. When women, the majority of the population, emphasize what we have in common with each other rather than how we are different, then there's no stopping us. Me Too is a starting place, and a brilliantly effective one, for discovering and emphasizing those similarities. It leads to a feminist epiphany, or, as evangelical Christians might say, it's a come-to-Jesus moment. I trust women, no matter where they're coming from, to recognize and respect each other's righteous anger, to explore that, to eventually link arms, and to take it from there. Amen. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. That's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter, and you can check out my website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.